What a movie. If you haven't seen Warfare yet, I highly suggest you pause this video and return to it once you're finished with the 90-minute descent into urban combat chaos. I'll say it right off the bat. Warfare will go down in history as one of the best war movies ever made, and perhaps the most realistic war movie of all time. This video will contain a metric ton of spoilers, and I don't want to ruin the experience for you, so leave now and come back once you've seen it. It would be insulting to speak about Warfare as just a movie. This PTSD-inducing movie is, more than anything, a testament to cruelty of modern combat, and unlike many other war movies that romanticize it, Warfare is no temple of worship for combat enthusiasts. If anything, this movie is an incredible broadcaster of the quote by Dutch philosopher Desiderius Erasmus: "War is delightful only to those who have had no experience of it." And how does this masterpiece deliver the message? It does it through a painfully grounded, but no less anxiety-inducing, real-time depiction of one of the worst situations any unit could find themselves in. And it does all this without succumbing to cheesy Call of Duty-like war movie moments, focusing entirely on what's real and palpable. This film was created and produced by war veterans to honor war veterans, and at the same time, show the world the brutality of war without holding back. Warfare opens with, in my opinion, one of the greatest opening scenes in any war movie. Although it's fairly simple, the scene of the squad jumping around and hyping themselves up to call on me is, first of all, an incredibly realistic depiction of on-base, pre-mission behavior, as well as a great way to establish the historical setting of the movie. Just like everything in this movie, these tiny details were premeditated as much as real military ops, and with that in mind, it's not surprising to learn that Ray Mendoza, who directed and wrote the movie alongside Alex Garland, was a Navy SEAL during the Iraq War, and he personally took part in this mission. As the SEALs move into the house they want to clear out, I immediately spotted something that I criticize in pretty much every war movie. Everyone's wearing helmets and packs. I feel like the vast majority of war movies forget about head protection and the ridiculous amount of gear soldiers carry in their packs, usually showing them with just their guns and their vests. Not Warfare though, Mendoza kept it as realistic as possible in this scene. After the squad clears out a house and settles in for recon, we're in for, in my opinion, the most realistic depiction of military life in any media: waiting. From about minute 7 until minute 28 of the movie, all we get is a compilation of the SEALs waiting, hydrating, messing around, trying not to die from boredom, checking in with their forward command center, rotating posts, and reporting on possible enemy movement. In translation, for about 21 minutes of the movie, nothing really happens except for tension building, and this is going to be painfully familiar to anyone who's ever served. There's an international military saying that goes, "You rush only to wait, then you wait just to be rushing," and it's never been personified better than in the first act of this movie. When this movie ends, you get the feeling that war is 90% waiting and wishing something would happen, and 10% regretting ever signing up. Despite very little happening during this section, we can start picking up on little clues of just how dedicated the crew was to the making of this movie. For one, Elliot, who's manning the sniper and doing most of the forward recon, can be seen keeping recon notes. This is a blink and you'll miss it moment, but Elliot's notebook is something you don't often see in movies, even though it's standard operating procedure for any recon mission. The detailed depth to which they went with this notebook is incredible, and it is in itself an epitome of the devotion to the accuracy in this movie. At the bottom of the notebook, you can see Elliot's field of view, his distance ranges, and little marks for where potential targets keep popping up. On the top page, he has a tiny table in which he marks down the exact time a potential hostile leaves a building. This is incredible attention to detail. Another realistic detail that's there just to appease military guys and girls who are watching are these gloves. I swear to God, there is not a single military unit in the entire world without at least one member wearing these gloves. They've become so iconic and easily recognizable, I'm sure everyone in the movie theater turned into Leo DiCaprio for a second when they spotted them. Something that the directors expertly managed to depict here too is just how ready these men are. You can read from subtle cues and body language that they're essentially in standby the entire time, and they're ready for a firefight at any given moment. And when you know what hits the fan, that readiness is exemplified brilliantly. The tactics in this movie are spot on. They're simply put incredible, so we'll take a look at them chronologically. At the beginning of the movie, the two squads are walking down the street, staying close to the walls on each side. Simple, correct, Accurate. There's not much to criticize here. I think the operators were a bit too close to one another, as you usually want to have a bit of room between you and the next guy, as it minimizes the number of casualties in case of an attack, but the directors probably did that on purpose to fit all the squad members in the frame. After that, we see the team we follow throughout the rest of the movie clear the house they use for the rest of the movie. The fact that they're doing it in the dark with NVGs is completely realistic. Something that we see here and in the rest of the movie is moving undercover. This is absolutely spot on, and it's obvious the directors paid special attention to this during filming. Then, when all hell is let loose with an insurgent throwing a grenade in the house through a hole in the wall, we can see Tommy providing cover fire as his teammates, who are shell-shocked and injured by the grenade, crawl towards cover. Throughout the next few minutes, we get a glimpse into perfectly executed defense maneuvers as the guys open fire on potential points of entry. As soon as the dust settles, even if it's just for a minute, Sam does a med check on Elliot and informs his CO that they need a casevac. This is 100% following real-life protocols to the T. When attacked, return fire, secure the perimeter, and inform HQ of your status. Another small detail that I spotted here happens in the scene where Sam and Tommy are recovering Elliot's stuff from the room where the grenade went off. Once Sam collects the sniper rifle, he grabs Tommy by the backside of his plate carrier, and Tommy, walking backwards, escorts Sam out of the room, effectively protecting him from enemy fire. There are 2 points to be made here. First of all, this is a real maneuver. Grabbing the backside of someone's plate carrier is how you make sure you're always attached to them, so to say, and you can push them forward or pull them back, as they can do the same to you, depending on the situation. The reason Sam is behind Tommy is to minimize their size and the potential of both of them getting shot. Tommy is effectively a human shield in this scenario, and if he gets shot, at least Sam won't. At the same time, while Sam is holding him by the vest, Tommy is aiming at the window in front of them, which is the likeliest point of potential contact, so even if someone does open fire on them, Tommy will return fire almost instantly. This is essentially the safest way to exit a room in a pair, with one person carrying something that prevents them from using their primary weapon. The second detail I spotted is even more subtle. Take a look at the way Tommy's feet move backwards, how high he raises them. This is the result of boot camp. In case you didn't know, all actors went through a fairly intense boot camp prior to filming, and in a boot camp, you're always taught to walk heel to toe when walking forward, but to raise your feet high when walking backwards. The reason is simple. You can't see where you're going, and the chances of tripping over something, such as the mattresses stacked on top of one another, are lower if you raise your feet up high. This is a great little detail that you just won't see in most military movies. Later in the movie, when Sam and Elliot are already heavily injured, Eric is severely concussed, and they're desperate for backup. As the rest of the platoon is moving in from OP2 towards OP1, we can see meticulously well-organized movement. Every single time someone is moving, someone else is covering them. There is not a single instance in the movie of someone moving without cover. I specifically looked out for it and I couldn't find it. I know I mentioned moving undercover before, but it's insane to me that the directors and the actors, who are civilians that were just trained to pretend they're soldiers, all kept an eye out for details to such an insane degree that at no point in the movie did they allow bounding without cover. That is just an absurd level of devotion to the craft. When we compare this with your run-of-the-mill Hollywood war movie, the realism is palpable, and it makes those movies look like half-baked attempts at something that's beyond the scope of ability of most directors. No one dolphin dives with perfect hair in warfare. It's as simple as that. As for the loadout, it's spot on, and there's nothing out of the ordinary here. Elliot uses Knight's Armament SR-25 with a bipod, also known as the MK-11. It's absolutely realistic for that time period. The SEALs and Marines use M4A1 carbines with different attachments. Some of them have holographic sights, laser sights, and or ACOG scopes. Eric and Ray, as we can see in this still, have flashlights, foregrips, and holographic sights, for example, but the loadouts vary from person to person. Tommy, the newest squad member and the machine gunner, uses an MK-48 Mod 0. This is basically the military designation for the FN Mini-Me, a common Belgian light machine gun. Tommy dons it with a box magazine and holographic sights. We also see the interpreters carrying AKMs, some SEALs carry the MK-18 and the MK-46, but all of these weapons are fairly within the realm of realism, and there's nothing negative to point out here. If anything, the handling is incredible on the actor's part. Proper posture, controlled bursts, and purposeful firing. On top of that, all the gear we see in the movie is down to earth. There are no unrealistic, glowing attachments, nothing's really over the top. With the director being an actual war veteran who took part in this mission, he's the character of Ray in real life, in case you didn't realize. We expect nothing less. How many times have you seen a claymore used as a pressure or tripwire activated booby trap in a movie? Although it is possible, it's pretty damn difficult to rig a claymore to detonate by timer or tripwire, and moreover, those methods are almost never used by military troops in real life. Despite that, we've seen it in so many different media: Predator, Commando, even Call of Duty. You won't see it in Warfare though. Warfare is, in fact, one of the few movies where we have to commend the appropriate use of claymores. Not only are they detonated with a detonator, which is usually how it goes in real life, they're also placed strategically, not in some random spot. The frogmen use them to cover the balcony and the roof after realizing that all the roofs in the area are on the same level, and anyone could easily sneak up behind them using the rooftops. By the way, here's a fun fact for all of you who have never seen a claymore in real life. The front side says front toward enemy, just to make sure you don't accidentally turn it on yourself and end up launching 700 tiny steel balls at your own unit. Another testimony to realism in this movie is the hearing loss after the IED goes off. All the SEALs, no matter how close or far they were from the explosion, suffer from heavy temporary hearing loss, which is depicted through brilliant sound design. Speaking of the IED, there's another big moment here that's unofficially true, making the interpreters go first. Although it's all hush-hush officially, there are a lot of rumors online from military vets who actually fought in the global war on terror about sending interpreters headfirst into an area with a present IED danger. The logic behind it is, obviously it's better to lose an interpreter than an elite operator, but it's nonetheless cruel. You can be the judge of realism here, but keep in mind that, as I've already said God knows how many times, one of the writers and directors of this movie is a veteran SEAL who actually took part in this mission. The final moment of realism I'd like to point out is accidentally stabbing yourself with morphine. It happened to thousands of field operatives, and it even happens to doctors and nurses all around the world with epinephrine. It's a goofy moment, but nonetheless real, further highlighting just how confused even the most trained men can be when enough pressure is put on them. With all of that in mind, Warfare is not really a glamorous war movie. It's not as nearly as stylized as Midway, American Sniper, or Hacksaw Ridge, for example. And I'm saying that without throwing shade at those movies. This movie was simply filmed for a different purpose, and that leads us to our next point of discussion: the message. The most realistic thing about this movie is the pacing. In real life, it took about 90 minutes for the SEALs to be evacuated after the initial attack. The movie is 95 minutes long, including credits. Although writing a story that's supposed to be precisely 90 minutes long sounds limiting, it helped draw you, the viewer, in. This, however, is only the beginning of the director's obsession with time. The Bradleys, who are supposed to evacuate Elliot, communicate that they're 6 minutes away after 36 minutes of the movie's runtime. They arrive at minute 42. Jake, commanding the other team, tells Eric that they left OP2 and that they're about 5 minutes out at 1 hour and 3 minutes of the movie's runtime. Want to take a wild guess when they arrive? You got it, 1 hour and 8 minutes. This happens again and again with air support and Bradleys as they give the on-ground troops ETA updates. The question is, why is this movie so consumed with time and accuracy? The answer? Because of the horror. The SEALs are dealing with 2 gravely injured team members, both of whom would, in real life, have paid dearly for this mission. In medically critical situations, every single second matters, and constantly updating the ETA is building up tension, as well as it's pulling the viewers in. You can almost feel the anxiety and sense how devoid of hope everyone is. They're completely surrounded by seemingly endless waves of enemy insurgents with 2 heavily wounded teammates, waiting for a casevac that keeps being delayed, and because it's all happening in real time, you're not just watching them go through it, you're almost going through it with them. Nobody encapsulated this feeling of uncomfortable tension, anxiety, and the ever-looming feeling of doom hiding just around the corner better than the Times Critics section, simply saying, "Go see it and understand." They really hit the nail on the head with that quote, as this movie wasn't made for you to enjoy, it was made for you to understand, and the only way you could ever truly understand and process what war feels like is by getting an uncensored, real-time depiction of it. Although we're talking about arguably the most realistic war movie of all time, there's one major error in it, and that's the Bradleys. These vehicles are, in fact, not Bradleys. They're actually British FV432s that were mocked up to look like Bradleys. They modified the vehicles, which are usually unarmed, by adding the 25mm M242 Bushmaster chain gun. The big question is, why? Why would a movie that paid an insane amount of attention to various filmmaking details and historical accuracy use wrong AFVs? There are several theories floating around online, and one of them is pretty simple. A24 is not that rich of a studio, and they simply didn't have enough money for more accurate replicas. Another theory, one supported by online forum users who claim to have filmmaking experience, is that the only way to get a Bradley for your movie is by getting the Department of Defense to sign off on it. The issue is, if the DoD gives you a Bradley, they're going to want to meddle with the scripts, and the pair of directors probably decided to sacrifice this tiny bit of technological accuracy for the sake of storytelling honesty and integrity. Personally, I don't think it's a big deal if they missed the armor plating, as long as they nailed the trauma, and that they certainly did. The AFVs in the movie serve their purpose just fine. They're big, armored, and capable of evacuating the wounded. They're not the focus of the movie, and the fact that they're not actual Bradleys doesn't take anything away from the movie. In fact, the only reason I'm addressing it is because hundreds of Reddit users are obsessing over it, and I want to put the discussion to bed. With all of that being said, this movie is a 10 out of 10. There's nothing else to say about it. The firearms and gear used in the movie are all accurate, aside from the Bradleys, but this movie isn't about the loadouts. It's about the story. It's about war. It's an incredibly grueling, anxiety-inducing, borderline painful experience, but one that demands respect. I'll go back to what I said at the beginning of this video. I believe this movie was created with two purposes. One of them is honoring war veterans, and the other is almost a plea from war veterans to everyone romanticizing and glorifying war. The plea being, you can only romanticize it if you never experienced it. Because of this, I highly recommend that every civilian watch this movie, as it's the closest thing you'll get to actually experiencing war. But don't take my word for it, just take a look at the comments from real war veterans I dug up online, and this didn't take me more than a few minutes. People had to leave theaters because of how effective the movie was at triggering PTSD episodes, dragging them back to the hell they've been trying to leave behind for years. Even people who have never served and were never deployed felt their hearts sinking throughout the entire movie, and I suppose that's actually the best way to describe it. The movie is 95 minutes of feeling your heart sink, and it keeps trying to reach that rock bottom, but it never does. It's senseless to compare it to other films because there are none like it. Sure, some tried touching upon the realism scene here. Jarhead and Saving Private Ryan come to mind, but there's no closure here. There's no Matt Damon visiting Tom Hanks' grave. There's no fourth son returning home. If we compare this movie to Saving Private Ryan, a movie so cruel and realistic that World War II veterans couldn't watch it past the beach landing scene, we can say that Warfare is 95 minutes of Corporal Upham standing on the staircase and failing to gather the courage to save Mellish. Imagine if that scene went on for 95 minutes. That's how painfully uncomfortable and jittery this movie will make you feel. And the question you have to ask yourself is, if I, sitting in my living room, thousands of miles and dozens of defense packs away from senseless violence, am this uncomfortable just watching this, how must the actual people who lived through this have felt? I want you to really give that a thought now that you've seen this movie. The answer is synonymous to what war is like, and once you realize that, the message of this movie is communicated and its purpose is fulfilled. What's the most accurate and realistic war movie you've ever seen? Are there any movies you hate because of how over-stylized and refined they are? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more tactics and firearm breakdowns.